Hey there, gang. OG Blade Reviews back with you once again. And I've said this many times before, but I've got something special, very special on the table today. And if you're looking for it and you want to buy one, you're going to need to get it from a collector or somebody on the secondary market, eBay, what have you. And it's going to cost you a pretty penny. Originally, when this knife came out, it was about 125 bucks or so in the 90s, 1990s. Remember the 1990s? Many of you don't because you weren't born yet. Oh, God, I feel ancient. I probably am. But this is the Cuda Maxx 5.5. Some background. And I'm going to open it so you got something to stare at while I'm jabbering away. This came to me by way of Dirk Pinkerton. It was designed by Darryl Ralph, who had done a lot of designs for Camillus. Unfortunately, Darryl passed away in 2021. He was only in his mid-60s, I believe, but he's a legend in the knife industry, and he was the mentor of Dirk Pinkerton. So, you know, Dirk, with all of his fantastic custom knives and the designs that he has out there for so many different companies, not the least of which is Concept and the Main Street and so on and so forth. And I'm sure you can name at least a half a dozen or a dozen other designs by Dirk. So Darryl Ralph mentored Dirk way back, not exactly sure what year, but was contacted by Dirk around November, December, maybe even mid-year 2024 last year. And he said he might have a few of these through a connection that somebody had gotten a hold of. So long story short, I want to thank Dirk, who is a most wonderful and generous man, for me coming to have this knife. And let's take a look at it. See if we got enough room on the table here. Not your conventional flipper tab. It's got the double Killian. Before you tell me that it can be a waveable knife, yes, it can be. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Now, as I said, this was made by Camillus Cutlery. Camillus Cutlery was an American-based company doing business since 1876. That's about 150 years ago. And unfortunately, they went bankrupt in 2007, and they were taken over by the Acme United Corporation. That's a little bit of web research I did. You can fact check me on that if you know anything more. As I said, Darryl passed away in 2021, unfortunately. And he is noted as one of the preeminent American knife makers. He did custom knives as well as a knife designer. So I am very fortunate to have come by this knife. I've looked them up. There's some, one or two out there in Arizona custom knives that where you can get a lot of these older, out-of-date knives and a lot of custom knives, as the name implies. I'm not sure there are any more left, but the last going price I saw was about $550. As I say, yes, it is a collectible. So there were many versions of the Cuda Maxx 5.5, and there was also a Cuda Maxx 7, I believe, if I'm correct, that Dirk mentioned to me. And a 7-inch blade would actually make it longer than even any cold steel folding pocket sword. This one is not necessarily, it's just a bit shy of some of the larger cold steel knives, and we'll do a compare coming up. But what we've got here, this particular version, and as I said, there were dagger versions, there were these Bowie clip versions, and this one happens to be in a high polished mirror finish, and it's really, you got to get the light just right to see it. Here you can see the labeling. You see me in the background. Speaking of mirrors, it's the Cuda Maxx 5.5. It is in D2. It is referred to as a quick flick. This was back before many knives had back flippers on them, flipper tabs. And there is D. Ralph Design USA. And I believe this was made in the US. I'm pretty certain it was. Nowadays, the Camillus knives are most in the budget territory, in the 30, 50, up to $100. And I think they had one or two that were over maybe a couple hundred, kind of unusual. And they are made in China for the most part. Back in the day, Camillus was a U.S. company. It was actually based in Connecticut. And I believe they might have also had a presence in New York State. But let's see what we got here. And then, as usual, we'll measure it up. We got a titanium, kind of a blasted blue anode handle with these scallops. Don't give you a whole lot of grip. It is, for its size, an extremely thin handle. And you can see straight through. It's wide open with these barrel spacers here, these pins, 3 of them on the spine. It is a Framelock. It does not have a hardened steel insert and does not have an over travel stop. It is on bronze phosphor bushings, but still very smooth. And here's your flipper tab. And you got to give it a little bit of wrist when you flip it. It's called a quick flick, but not sure there's a ball bearing detent. Let's see. Yeah, there's a detent there. So it's locking in, and I can't tell you, I haven't taken it apart. Here is where you could pull it out of the pocket and open it. However, you're noticing that the clip is on the pivot side. There was a reason for that, according to Dirk, that Darryl didn't want to have the knife opening up in the pocket and stabbing the owner. So he felt the safer way to put the clip was up here. Hey, I've got Microtech SOCOM manual folders that have the clip up here. You get used to it. It's not a big deal. It doesn't get in your way anymore when you're holding it than clips down here would. He did, by special arrangement, I'm told, put the clip here for some customers, but he checked that out first with Mr. Emerson of Emerson Knives, because that was his patent, the wave opening. And he wanted to make sure it was okay with him before he created a wave opening knife. And that's very decent of Darryl, and speaks volumes about how honest and professional he was. Let's get some measurements going, because I think you'll be impressed. We've got 11 3/4 inches overall. We've got that blade length of, well, depending upon where you measure it, if I go right to the handle there, it's a little less than 5.5 inches. But if you go down here, you can squeeze 5.5 inches out of it, almost 6 down to that handle part there. And pardon the glare, but that's going to be the story for today. These mirror knives, unless I set up a very special lighting for it that would take me an hour or two, you're going to get that reflection. But I'm sure you'll bear with it. Only a 0.42 inches. And people are bugging me to do it in metric, so here we go. So that's 106 millimeters. The blade stock, if we measure the Killian there, which is a good way to get the blade stock, is 3.3 millimeters, or 0.12 inches. And see if I can find my scale here. I know it's around somewhere, hiding under some microfiber cloths, because I might need to wipe this guy off. All right. And the weight is 6.7, we'll round that down, 6.7 ounces. So you're saying, oh my God, that's a pocket anchor. Look at the size of the knife. The knife closed is almost 6.5 inches. So, you know, if we go by the handle, it's almost an ounce per inch, right? It is in D2, and during that time, D2 was a premium cutlery steel, both for custom makers as well as for production knives. Many of the first knives I collected were in D2. As a matter of fact, I keep saying this, I've got a Microtech crosshair fixed blade that I don't believe is made anymore. From 2008 was in D2. I had actually ordered that one in S30V, and I got it off a guy, very reputable guy, as a matter of fact, on eBay, but ended up being a D2 model. He apologized, gave me a discount. I've still got the knife because I believe that's a collectible as well. Getting back to the Cuda Maxx 5.5. Yeah, look. Look at that. You can almost do two hands. I don't know how you'd use that. Maybe for chopping. It is a very locked up tight for the size. There is zero movement, not even any flexion, barely some flexion of the blade. And see, once again, it is a fingerprint magnet. If you care about that, you'll be wiping it off. I don't think I'd EDC this knife because it has such value. You might say, how can it have so much value? D2, we see titanium all the time. It was a unique knife designed by a unique man that had many, many out there designs. If you look up Cuda Maxx 5.5, just do a broad search on the web, Google it, you'll find lots of different versions. You'll see, I know Bob DeMarco picked one of these up from Dirk recently as well. His was in a more of a either satin or a matte finish. And as I said, there are also out there dagger versions of this. I had a dagger version of this, which I actually bought back in the 90s. And yeah, you got it. Should have kept it. Well, let's take a look size-wise at the Cold Steel Formax Scout next to the Cuda Maxx 5.5. It's coming in, and it's only a 4-inch blade, only a 4-inch blade. It's coming in about 3 inches or so shorter overall. It's got a blade of about, as I said, 4 inches. We've got 5.5, so yeah, we're talking 1.5 inches longer. Looks longer. How about another biggie from Cold Steel, the Frenzy. Frenzy's going to give it some competition size-wise. Yep. It is a longer knife overall because we've got a longer handle. You see, got about 1 inch longer handle at least. And I think we're slightly longer in the blade on the Frenzy. You probably know if you're a Cold Steel knife collector. It's a little over 5.5 inches, not quite 5 3/4. We're going to call it the same blade length, more or less. And there. So yeah, hard to get the perspective on my monitor here because the monitor's not quite 100% accurate to my eye. But, you know, we'll call them for intents and purposes, same size knife. A little longer overall because of the handle. Put the Formax Scout back out there again. And how about if we just take a normal, quote unquote, size knife and put the Griptilian in there. And you'll really get the idea of the size differential here. I mean, you could almost say, not quite, that the whole length of the knife is about the size of the handle on the Cuda Maxx, exaggeratingly. Thought you'd be interested in this acquisition. It's Quite the collector piece. I'm probably not going to carry it and bang it up. It's in, I would say, near pristine condition. Um, I don't normally take to mirror blades. I think I've got like maybe one or maybe two in the collection that's got a mirror finish, but doesn't matter. I want to thank Dirk for getting a hold of this for me, for sending it my way. Just a beautiful, beautiful example of the artistry and the design mind of a great knife maker and a great knife company, Camillus. They're not the Camillus perhaps that they used to be. They're still existing, kind of like what happened with Cold Steel, although I think Cold Steel, certainly they're producing those knives that Lynn Thompson designed pretty much to the letter still. So that's a good thing. But again, the new Camillus company is known as Acme United Corp. As of 2007. Is it still? I'm not sure, but I think it is. There is, at any rate, the Cuda Maxx 5.5, amazing, large Bowie style folding knife. Right about now, you're going to see my logo over here. Click on it if you haven't subscribed, and subscribe to the channel, please. I'd like to see you back again. Be well, take care, stay safe.